My name is David Chen, and in the world of cybersecurity, the quietest people often hold the most power. When my father-in-law, Richard Wellington, CEO of Wellington Financial Group, dismissed me as just another code monkey, he had no idea he was insulting the person who would soon save, or destroy, his entire empire. Really, Lisa? Richard sighed during our weekly family dinner at Le Blanc's, his favorite 5-star restaurant. When you said you were dating a programmer, I assumed he'd at least be a department head. My wife squeezed my hand under the table. After 2 years of marriage, she was used to her father's condescension, but it still bothered her. David's very good at what he does, Dad, she said, her voice tight. Richard barely glanced up from his Wagyu steak. I'm sure he is, dear. Though at his age, I was already running my first hedge fund. I focused on my laptop screen, continuing to type lines of code that would have made Richard choke on his $300 wine if he'd understood what they meant. But he didn't understand. That was the problem with old money finance types. They only saw value in things they could immediately measure. What Richard didn't know was that for the past 3 years, I've been developing something revolutionary. An AI-driven security system that could predict and prevent financial cyber attacks before they happened. Not just standard threats, my system could detect the sophisticated attacks that had been plaguing financial institutions lately. The ones that had already cost several banks billions. Including, though he didn't know it yet, Wellington Financial. At least put that laptop away, Richard snapped. This is a family dinner, not your little coding club. I closed the laptop, but not before sending the final diagnostic report to my private server. Tomorrow would be interesting. The story really began 3 years ago, when I first started dating Lisa. She was from old money, raised in Manhattan's upper echelons. I was a scholarship kid who'd worked my way through MIT. On paper, we shouldn't have worked. But Lisa saw past appearances. It was one of the things I loved about her. Her father, however, was a different story. A programmer, he'd said when we first met. How quaint. What he didn't know was that I wasn't just any programmer. At MIT, I developed one of the first AI systems capable of predicting market manipulation patterns. The NSA and CIA had both tried to recruit me, but I had bigger plans. I'd seen how vulnerable the financial system was. Major banks were using security systems that were basically antiques, protected only by their complexity and obscurity. It was like safeguarding the world's wealth with a lock that only worked because few people knew how to pick it. I wanted to change that. The first warning signs at Wellington Financial appeared 6 months ago. Small discrepancies in international transfers, tiny delays in trading algorithms, things most people would miss. But I wasn't most people. There's something wrong with your company's security, I tried telling Richard at a family brunch. The patterns I'm seeing. Please, he cut me off with a wave of his hand. We have top-tier security. Our systems are impenetrable. Lisa gave me a sympathetic look. She knew what I really did, knew I wasn't just the simple programmer her father assumed I was. But we'd agreed to keep things quiet until the right moment. That moment was approaching faster than anyone realized. 2 months ago, I detected the first serious breach attempt at Wellington Financial. Someone was testing their defenses, probing for weaknesses. The company's security team missed it completely. I spent nights tracking the attacks, mapping their patterns, using them to refine my own system. Lisa would bring me coffee at 3 a.m., watching as I turned the attackers' methods into learning opportunities for my AI. You should tell Dad, she said one night. His company's at risk. I shook my head. He wouldn't believe me. Not yet. Last week, everything accelerated. The probing attacks became more frequent, more sophisticated. Wellington's stock price started showing microscopic fluctuations, invisible to most, but clear signals to someone who knew what to look for. I called an old friend at the SEC, sharing my concerns anonymously. They launched a quiet investigation. Then yesterday, I received an email from Thomas John, head of security at Global Investment Partners, Wellington's biggest rival. He'd heard rumors about my system, wanted to meet. Your father-in-law's company is about to be hit, he told me over coffee. Hard. Our intelligence suggests a coordinated attack, possibly state-sponsored. They'll breach the trading systems, manipulate transactions, cause chaos. Wellington Financial won't survive. Unless, he smiled, unless they have better protection. we're prepared to offer $50 million for exclusive rights to your security system. I thought about Richard's sneers, his dismissals, his constant belittling of my little coding projects. I'll think about it, I said. That night, during the family dinner, watching Richard mock my career choices while his company stood on the brink of disaster, I made my decision. I excused myself early, citing work deadlines. Richard made some comment about junior programmers and their time management. If he only knew what those extra hours were really for. Back in my home office, I made 3 calls. First, to my lawyers, confirming everything was in place. Second, to my team, brilliant programmers I'd recruited secretly over the past year, each one as underestimated as I had been. Third, to Lisa. It's starting, I told her. Are you sure you're okay with this? Dad needs to learn some humility, she said firmly. Do it. I began the final preparations, knowing that tomorrow morning, Richard Wellington would learn exactly what kind of programmer he had in his family, and exactly what that was worth. The attack began at 9:17 a.m., just as Wellington Financial's trading day started. I sat in my home office, multiple monitors displaying real-time data feeds, watching the sophisticated cyber assault unfold exactly as I predicted. The attackers were good, better than good. They slipped through Wellington's defenses like ghosts through walls. At 9:22 a.m., my phone rang. Lisa. Dad's having an emergency board meeting, she said. The trading systems are going haywire. They can't stop it. I pulled up the Wellington Financial stock price. It was starting to fluctuate wildly as the attackers manipulated trades, creating chaos in the markets. At 9:45 a.m., Richard Wellington finally swallowed his pride and called me. David, he said, his voice strained. Lisa suggested, she said you might be able to help. I smiled at the effort it must have taken him to make that call. I'll be there in 20 minutes. We don't have 20 men. 20 minutes, I repeated firmly. And Richard? When I arrive, you'll need to give me complete system access. No questions asked. The silence on his end was deafening. Fine, he finally managed. I grabbed my laptop and a small external drive. Lisa was waiting by the door. Give him hell, she said, kissing me goodbye. Wellington Financial's offices occupied the top floors of a gleaming Manhattan skyscraper. When I arrived, the place was in chaos. Traders were shouting into phones, tech staff ran between workstations, and the board members looked like they were witnessing a slow-motion car crash. Richard met me at the elevator, his usual imperious manner cracking under stress. The attacks are accelerating, he said, leading me to the main security room. We've lost control of half our trading systems. The SEC is calling. Our stock is in freefall. The security team looked up as I entered, 6 highly paid experts, all helpless against this attack. Their screens showed the devastation in real time. Systematic breaches of every security layer they'd built. I sat down at an empty workstation and plugged in my external drive. What are you doing? The head of security demanded. You can't just. He has full authorization. Richard cut in, the words clearly painful to say. I began typing, my fingers flying across the keyboard. First, a diagnostic scan using protocols I'd spent years developing. Within minutes, I had a complete picture of the attack. They're not just stealing, I announced. They're destroying. Corrupting core databases, inserting false transactions, undermining the entire system's integrity. Can you stop it? Richard asked. I turned to face him. Yes. But first, we need to talk about terms. His face reddened. Terms? The company is under attack. Exactly, I said calmly. And you need to understand exactly what you're buying before I save it. I opened my laptop, showing him the presentation I prepared. This is my AI security system. It doesn't just stop attacks. It predicts them, learns from them, evolves faster than the threats themselves. Global investment partners offered me $50 million for it yesterday. Richard's eyes widened. You're blackmailing me, now? No, I corrected him. I'm offering you the chance to understand what a junior programmer is really worth. The choice is yours. I can save Wellington Financial right now, but only if you sign a contract making my company, Chen Security Solutions, your exclusive security provider. Full creative control, $100 million for the first 5 years. He stared at me, finally seeing me clearly for the first time. You knew this attack was coming. I've been tracking it for months, trying to warn you if you bothered to listen." Another alarm blared. More systems were falling. "The contract," I said quietly, "is already drawn up. My lawyers are waiting for your call." Richard looked at the chaos around him, then at the contract on my screen. Years of condescension, of dismissal, of treating me as inferior, all of it collapsing in the face of reality. "Fine," he snapped. "Do it." I had him sign electronically, then turned back to the workstation. Now came the part I'd been preparing for years. My fingers flew across the keyboard, implementing the defense systems I'd designed. On the large displays around the room, people watched in amazement as my AI system engaged with the attackers. It wasn't just blocking them, it was predicting their moves, countering strategies they hadn't even deployed yet. Within 30 minutes, the attack was contained. Within an hour, all systems were restored, with my security protocols firmly in place. The board members, who had been watching from the doorway, burst into applause. The security team looked both impressed and slightly terrified. Richard just stood there, his worldview visibly shifting. "How long?" he finally asked. "How long have you been this capable?" "Always," I replied, gathering my things. "You just never bothered to look past your own assumptions." I handed him a card. "My team will be here tomorrow to begin the full security upgrade. Try to be more welcoming to them than you were to me. Some of them are just programmers too." The next few weeks transformed Wellington Financial. My security system became the talk of Wall Street. Other banks, seeing how we'd repelled an attack that would have devastated most firms, began calling. Richard's attitude underwent its own transformation. The sneers disappeared, replaced by something approaching respect. At family dinners, he actually began asking my opinion on technical matters. "Lisa found it all highly entertaining. You should see how he brags about you to his friends now," she told me one evening. My son-in-law, the tech genius, as if he'd known all along. Today, Chen Security Solutions protects over 40 major financial institutions. Our AI system has evolved beyond even my original vision, learning and adapting to new threats daily. The junior programmer now runs a billion-dollar company. Richard still hosts those weekly family dinners at LeBlanc's. But now, when I bring my laptop, he doesn't complain. Sometimes, he even asks to see what I'm working on. I keep the original contract framed in my office, the one he signed in desperate need, finally recognizing the value of what he'd dismissed for so long. Next to it hangs a note Lisa gave me the day after I saved the company. "Sometimes the quietest people have the loudest impact." She was right. In the end, I didn't need to shout my worth from the rooftops. I just needed to wait for the right moment to demonstrate it. Success, like good code, doesn't need to be flashy to be powerful. Richard learned that lesson the hard way. Now, whenever he meets someone new, he's a little slower to judge, a little quicker to look beneath the surface. As for me, I still code late into the night, still work on new ways to protect the financial systems that run our world. But now, when I attend those family dinners, I do it as an equal, not because I proved Richard wrong, but because I proved myself right. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about rising above, creating something valuable, and letting success speak for itself. The satisfaction isn't in watching others fail. It's in succeeding so completely that they have no choice but to acknowledge what they once dismissed. In the end, the code doesn't care about your background, your family connections, or your social status. It only cares about whether it works. And sometimes, that's the greatest equalizer of all. Last week, I overheard Richard talking to a friend at LeBlanc. "Never judge someone by their title," he was saying. "You never know, that quiet programmer in the corner might just be the most powerful person in the room." I smiled and kept coding. After all, there are always new threats to predict, new systems to protect, new challenges to overcome. And somewhere out there, another underestimated programmer is writing code that might just change the world.